So with the Rugby Championship fast approaching, the All Blacks have released a list of injured players, and it is extremely long. Unfortunately, we did see many players going down throughout that France series, but in this video, I'll be letting you know who's injured, how long they'll be out for, and also who will be returning for that first match up against Argentina. So starting off, one of the more recent injuries that we did see, Noah Hotham did get injured right at the end of that game up against the French in the third test match. Only got around 15 minutes at the time that it happened. But unfortunately for Noah Hotham, he will need surgery for a high ankle sprain, and that's going to leave him out 7 to 8 weeks, which brings you through to around the middle stage of the Rugby Championship after the 2 matches up against Argentina and also the 2 up against South Africa. It certainly gives Scott Robertson a lot to think about, whether or not to still select Hotham and then have an injury cover for him, or just full on go with someone else, which I think is the more likely we will see for Scott Robertson. In that case, Tyrell Lomax, first game back for that man, and sadly did pick up a different injury from the one he was dealing with throughout Super Rugby. So he has got a hand fracture. He will require surgery, and that will be around 5 to 6 weeks that we will not see Tyrell Lomax. Once again, that takes him out for the 2 matches up against Argentina, as they are only less than the 3 weeks away. Takes him out of one of the 2 up against South Africa. So once again, whether or not Scott Robertson will keep him in there or maybe have an injury replacement. At the moment, though, it seems like maybe someone like a George Dyer could be the front runner for that tie head prop role. Looking through at the next man on the list, it is Caleb Clarke. We know that he got an injury during training. It actually took him out of the second test match up against the French. It was a little bit cursed, that left wing side, as for the third match, we saw Ioane ruled out, although I will quickly mention Rieko Ioane not on this injury list, so he will be 100% for the matches up against Argentina, but Caleb Clarke, he will not be. High ankle injury, doesn't need surgery for it, but 5 to 6 weeks is when to expect Clarke back. He didn't get any minutes throughout the series up against the French. He didn't have his best Super Rugby Pacific season, and I do hope that if he gets that All Blacks jersey back, he'll be extremely strong out on the left. Just put that little bit more pressure on the wingers. In the team, Luke Jacobson, he was ruled out of the third test match up against the French. Initially was going to be playing in that number 8 jersey, giving Leo Willie a spell, plus give Jacobson some minutes before the end of July. Now, we never actually saw Leo Willie make his way onto the field. He was on the bench, but never made his way on. Instead, Karefi got that start at 7, and Ardie Savia did move to number 8. But Jacobson, from the pre-match, it looked like he was clutching at his rib or somewhere around there. A thigh injury for Luke Jacobson. He's going to be out for 5 weeks, so that once again takes him out of the Argentinian series, but perhaps back in time for the matches up against the Box. But unfortunately, after suffering that concussion right at the end of the Super Rugby season, he's had a pretty bad run with injuries lately. Hopefully he can get out of that phase before the end of the year. Scott Barrett, the captain for the All Blacks, or at least he will be, I believe, once he returns. He was dealing with a calf tear, which initially took him out of a couple of the matches up against the French. Now, during that time, we actually saw Patrick Tuipulotu do pretty well at 4. Fabian Holland, of course, has been tearing it up in the number 5 jersey, but it is healing well for that calf tear, according to New Zealand Rugby, and he will be back in around 3 weeks, which actually makes him back just in time for that match up against the Argentines. But I really hope they don't risk it, because those calf muscles, they can be a tricky one. And if he ends up tearing it again, he will be out for a lot longer than 3 weeks. I can tell you that. Right now, Wallace Sititi, a man that a lot of people are anticipating to return into this All Black side. He has been dealing with the high ankle injury, which is actually becoming a really common injury at the moment for the ABs, but he is rehabilitating well following his surgery, and he will be back in 3 weeks, estimated. Now, I don't think he should be. I think that he should have that little bit longer. They don't need to risk him for the 2 matches up against the Argentinians. Let him rehab it. Let him get to 100%, because we saw him rush back from an injury for Super Rugby Pacific. He ended up with a different injury from rushing back, and this will be no different. Yes, he's an outstanding player, but they don't need to take any risks. The list is already long enough of the guys, the All Blacks. Missing currently, Tamaiti Williams. He is also in the rehabilitation stage. He's doing well after that torn meniscus. He'll be out for another 3 weeks, but back in time, potentially, for the matches up against Argentina, Beauden Barrett, he had a subtle hand refracture that he did actually hurt initially during Super Rugby Pacific. He is almost 100%. He's got 2 weeks until he'll be back, so he will be ready in time for the matches up against the Pumas. And then the last man on the injury update, Tupavai, did take that head knock in the second test match up against France, did suffer a concussion, but he will be back in time for the Rugby Championship comp. So with that being said, and a list of about 10 players for the injury update from the ABs, Scott Robertson has some massive decisions to make now heading into that Rugby Championship. Does he bring in new players for the guys who have about 5 weeks left, or will he name them in his squad and then just have injury cover like we initially saw as Christian Leo Willie, as Amoni Narawa, or will those guys get the nod and start in the squad and we'll see some new guys from the Bunnings EBC? 8 players released to play for their provinces this weekend, so maybe that will be a factor too. Whoever plays well in those matches may just get themselves that AB's call-up. But I do thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, of course, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. We will be doing our squad prediction in the relatively near future, and like I said, it's going to be very tricky to know exactly what way Scott Robertson's going, but any other injury updates, we of course will let you know on the channel as well. But thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all for the next one.